Okay, it says it's now live. Um, Hello, everyone watching. I don't know who is and who will, but I'm here with Trey Jadlow. He had invited me after my last video for a conversation. He says that he's got proof for God, which is really interesting to me. I definitely, want to kind of. I love exploring things like that. I am a little familiar with it because of Matthew Steele in a discussion we had earlier this week, but I don't want to assume that I know it at all. So, Trey, if you kind of want to introduce yourself, and you can just go right into what your proof is, and I think we can just get started from there.
Okay, that sounds good. It's nice to meet you, Ned. Thank you for agreeing to hang out with me. Well, let me tell you a little about myself. I live in Kansas City area. I've got 6 kids. I'm a dental technician. I make teeth for a living. I'm kind of a self-learner. I don't have much education, and I have a less than average intellect. But when there's something I'm interested in, I have this drive to search it out and learn about it. And so issues of ultimacy, of existence and epistemology and stuff like that are terribly interesting to me, and therefore I've kind of searched these things out and enjoy interacting on these issues. So what we're talking about here today is going to be the discussion of the existence of God. And what I'm going to do is I think I told you I'm happy to take the affirmative. The frustration many times with skeptics is that that the theists are not willing to take the affirmative in this endeavor. And they refer to something like faith or something. You just got to trust in it, and they can't really prove it. But I don't go that route. I am very happy to take the affirmative, and I'm very happy to confess that I believe that I can, or will endeavor to, give a positive proof for the existence of God. Not only just a logical proof, but actually it's a scientific proof for the existence of God, which is exactly what my opponents are looking for. Further, I would say that I'm not a presuppositionalist in the sense that is most understood today, which would be that camp, mainly Cornelius Van Til, who would say that you need to presuppose God in order to know anything. I only have 2 presuppositions, and those are the presuppositions that my opponents up to this point who have understood it have all agreed to, and those are the basic reliability of sense perception. Not that we have perfect perception, of course none of us do, and that's one of the difficulties with science. That's why it's always changing. But I'm saying basically I have enough sense perception to understand that I as an inquirer exist. So basic reliability of sense perception, and then the law of non-contradiction, or the laws of thought. In other words, rational coherence. So if I can have those 2 premises, sense perception and rationality, or rational coherence, I can prove the existence of God. Now, Ned, are you willing to concede those 2 points as presuppositions? Hello?
I muted myself to make sure I didn't step on you.
Oh,
So sorry about that. Like I said, I am not very good at this right now. But yeah, I think that those both are reasonable. It's very interesting to me that you would ground it in science, because that's a pretty high bar to get over. And if you can do that, man, that'd be amazing. I'm really excited to be a part of that. So
okay, well, let's proceed then.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the scientific method is based one half the scientific method is based on induction, where you are using your sense perception in order to gather in information. You're using your 5 senses, and when you gain that sense perception, you take that information and you're going from the general to the particular, or from the you're predicating things about things that you learn, and so from that information that you gather, you use rationality, or rational coherence, or the principles of rationality, in order to sift through that information. And what you do basically is you're categorizing that information that you have. It's been well said, I think, that science is nothing more than the art and science of taxonomy. We're just taking things and we're categorizing them and putting them in different shelves and how they relate to each other, and we're using that by rational coherence. So what I'm saying is I myself, as the inquirer, use my sense perception to know that I exist. Now, it's okay if somebody wants to say, well, we don't know if the external world is real. It's how do we know that we're not a brain in a vat? That doesn't matter to me. I don't care whether there's anything other than me. Solipsism is fine. All I need to know is that I myself, as the inquirer, actually exist. And so when I can perceive that I do exist, I also perceive that I'm not self-existent. I am contingent in my nature. That means I'm dependent for my existence. I need to eat. I need to sleep. I'm getting old. I was born. I cannot exist in and of myself. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the law of non-contradiction to my own existence and prove to myself that I am not self-existent. And if I am, hey, Mr. Maute, how are you?
Hey, Maute made it. Can you hear us, Christopher?
Maybe he's clicking in just now.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, let me go ahead and finish. If in fact I am, if I perceive myself to be contingent, then I know that I could not have made myself before I existed. Therefore, there must be something somewhere, somehow, with the attribute of self-existence to have made me. Some people might say, well, I was made by my parents. And you say, well, okay, well, extrapolate back to their parents, and you're going to go back and back. And contingency is this infinite regress, which an effect cannot create itself before it exists, and therefore there must be some cause that must have the attribute of self-existence. So that was my opening argument, Chris. Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Maute, you'll have to unmute if it looks like you're muted, man.
That's okay. I just can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I just had to turn my mic up on my mixer as well as unmute myself. So I just heard the last little bit of that. If that is the opening statement, I'm assuming that reciprocity is in effect, and Ned, you either have given or are going to give your opening statement.
Well, I mean, Maute, I think both of us, or Christopher, sorry, I think what me and Trey have decided on is a very informal, I don't know if we'd even call it debate. I think it's just going to be more of a kind of a back and forth discussion. I think both of us enjoy that more and think that we make a lot more headway. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think that I would like to come back on a little bit of that. But yeah, that in effect, that was his opening statement. So,
okay, and just out of curiosity, just so I'm kind of getting my feet about me, my legs about me, how long did that last? About 10 minutes?
No.
Maybe. I mean,
not even that long. Maybe 5 minutes or something.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah, it wasn't very long. So, and again, as far as holding any kind of standard, I mean, I'm long-winded, and so I'm sure that I'm going to go longer than he does. So, if I happen to concede any a time, it'll definitely work itself out in the end. So I'm not too concerned with that type of thing. The main thing is Christopher, I always like to have you around because if nothing else, you keep everybody at least somewhat focused and on the same page. So.
Well, that'll very much be what I consider my role to be. So I'll do mostly listening.
Yeah. So and thanks for doing this, man. I can see that we definitely had some crossed wires there, and so for you to be able to jump on here as quick as you did, I really appreciate it. So.
No problem, man. No problem.
Okay. So I guess getting back to Trey's opening statement, for lack of a better term, as far as from what I'm gathering. What you're saying is since our senses tell us that we are contingent, and we don't know of anything, at least in the physical world, that's non-contingent. The only thing that would explain the events, if we go back in time, that would allow for us to exist, must be, I guess, God. I mean, would that sum up what you were saying?
Yeah. And so far as this argument goes, God is defined as a self-existent creator.
Okay. Does it necessarily have to be sentient?
Well, if he's not sentient, then you have to justify your contingent sentience without it.
I don't see how that follows.
You don't?
No.
You don't see? You don't? You? All right. You're a propulsive creature, right?
To a certain degree, I would
Then
say.
you agree.
Well, I
You
mean,
purposed.
yeah,
Didn't
I
you
mean,
purpose to have this conversation?
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. But I guess what I'm saying is there's, at least in my opinion, being atheistic in my beliefs, there's not a grand plan. So I wouldn't concede that we're following God's plan. I don't think that the universe, the planet for that matter, cares if we're having this hangout right now.
Yeah, I don't need a meta narrative. All I need is just any purpose whatsoever. Purpose doesn't happen by accident.
And how do you know that?
Well, because I know that squares are not round.
And
you can't have unintentioned intentionality.
I'm saying that. Well, I guess my question is that you're okay. Let me get to my point as far as where I'm going with this, because what I see is a couple of things. Number one, and I'll ask you a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
First, would you say that your argument is contingent on a beginning, either the Big Bang or, I mean, something? There's got to be a beginning.
It's actually contingent on contingency, really.
Okay,
Stuff that happens. If something happens.
So without a start, there's not a contingency there. If something is eternal, then it's not contingent on anything. Would that be fair?
No, it wouldn't, because I'm talking about that which is not that which is subject to change, even right now at this moment. Something that is dependent, something that happens. We are happening. We're changing. We are becoming, in a sense. We're always changing. It goes back to the ancient debate between Heraclitus and Parmenides, the pre-Socratics. Heraclitus said that everything is changing, and he said that when you put your foot into a river, and then you take it out and you put your foot back into that river, he said that's not the same river. Everything has changed. The water's moved on. Everything has changed within it. Even you have changed as you have put your foot in and out of that river.
Right.
And Parmenides came along and said, well, no, wait a minute. He had this very profound argument that was so simple it seemed silly. He said, whatever is. In other words, if there's not some unchanging essence to being, then really you have nothing. There's got to be something that's unchanging element. Anyway, so all I was to say is the fact that we are changing, we cannot be continual change without some essence that is unchangeable, which would be self-existence.
Okay, and I mean, maybe I misspoke, or I wasn't clear. Sorry. I'm not saying that we have to be non-changing. What I'm saying is that what you're positing here is that there must be if you want to go back into antiquity, let's talk about first mover or prime mover. You're positing that there must have been some force out there that created our universe that we're contingent on. I mean, would that be fair?
Well, really what I'm saying is I don't need to speculate on the past. All I need to say is right now at this very moment, if there's something that is changing, then that's all I need.
Okay, but again, I mean, I guess I'm not understanding, because I don't think change, number one, you can demonstrate that it's that it's a man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. That I don't see how that, if something changes, that mandates that it's contingent. But I don't even want to go there. I don't need to. What I'm saying is I want to get to the point. I want to know that. Well, here I'll just establish my end of it. We won't do these little back and forth. I'll lay out where I'm going with this and what I'm thinking, and see if this makes any sense to you.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm prefacing this with the, I guess, belief or understanding, and I don't think we've gotten there yet, so I may be putting words in your mouth, and I don't mean to. But what it feels like to me is that since you're saying we're contingent, and if we extrapolate backwards, like you're saying, your mother, their mother, there, and on and on and on, we end up at a point where, at least in most physics, we get back to the beginning of the universe. Now that's Big Bang, that's whatever. So our universe, our visible universe, had a start which we're all contingent on. If it didn't have that start, if it never would have had that beginning, at least from what science is telling us now, we wouldn't have been able to be here. So where I want to go with that is that, I mean, I don't know how familiar or how up to speed, and I'm not claiming to be. I'm a lot more of into the classical physics than I am into quantum physics. But there's quite a few hypotheses out there, and I'll provide you links if you'd like to look in it, because to me anyway, they're very interesting. That would allow for, number one, our universe, which I don't want to go there, but probably the most recent and the one that seems most compelling to right now is titled Non-Singular Rainbow Universes. And it has to do with rainbow gravity, and the implications of that is that our universe would not have collapsed back into a singularity. Therefore, space-time would have always existed, and we would have had an infinite universe. The visible universe would have been timeless. I believe, if I'm remembering my Hawking right, there's also one that he posited. It's a lot older. It's probably 15, 20 years. No boundary proposal, which, because of the way quantum physics works, you get basically time, and this may sound kind of strange, but I'll give you a visible a representation that'll make sense to pretty much everybody. It posits that that time is, on one extent, it's infinite, but on another, it's without bound. And that might sound like it contradicts each other, but all we need to do is look at the planet we're sitting on. I mean, we definitely have finite, the Earth is finite, but if we were to start to walk or to start to travel along its surface, there's no end. I mean, you don't come to the end of east. You don't come to the end of north. You just continue to go, well, maybe north, but what I'm saying is you can travel in any direction forever. So in that sense, a sphere is boundless. It's infinite. And what Hawking did with another guy from, I believe it was California, the other scientist that he worked with, is demonstrated that time could be essentially that type of shape, to where it's boundless, which again not only takes back what I deem the universe, which is the visible universe, is infinite, but it also allows for the possibility of the cosmos. So if you want to bring in string theory and multiverse and M theory and all of the other postulates out there that could drive the beginning of the universe, or the beginning of our universe, even from a point of singularity, you could have an outside transcendental cosmos that is eternal. And I guess the question that this brings up to me is that where I'm using quantum physics, arguably the most predictive, most accurate model that man has ever produced, as my basis, and again, I'll quote you the link. I'll give you the link so you can go through and look at the mathematics yourself if you're so inclined. But it works. At least it makes it possible, if not probable. So what I guess what I would ask you at that point is, if, let's say, my hypothesis would be an eternal cosmos that created the universe that we're contingent on, your assertion would be God, what would you use to shore up your assertion, like I've used quantum physics and mathematics to shore up mine?
Can I jump in for one moment before you answer, Trey?
Sure.
I would just like to clarify for the people that are listening / watching that what seems to be addressed right here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trey, I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page so this doesn't go down rabbit holes where it's just like, how the heck did we get there? This is actually quite bounded, right, in the sense that you had mentioned that a contingency, you know, if you go backwards in time, and let's face it, you actually offered a thought experiment where, forget about backwards in time, right now in the here and now, I think that you said a self-existence is non-changing. And so, you know, you had mentioned that, okay, if we're all contingent on something, that, you know, it implied someone who put the contingency forth first. I'm going to use the word prime mover for the sake of discussion. What Ned just proposed was an idea soaked in science and physics where an eternal universe is not out of the question. So that seems to be the what we're talking about right now, where if we go back and back and back and back, we're all contingent on something until we get to a point where the contingency is created, versus to heck with creation, the universe is eternal, and you know our universe could very well be a what's the word I'm looking for? A catalyst could have caused it based on pre-existing whatever that has existed eternally. So that seems to be the two different discussions we're having right now. Does that sound like a fair assessment, guys?
Fairly close. The only correction that I would make there is I don't want to bound this just to the physical universe or the observable universe. You know, what I'm saying is even if you want to go transcendental, you want to get outside of our universe, outside of what we can actually test and see, there's still the possibility of multiverse, you know, all of those hypotheses out there that would still drive the exact same thing. We could have the Big Bang event as we see it and as it's understood, all the way back to the point of singularity, without the need for a God. And like I said, I just want to know where his foundation and where his I guess evidence, if you will, that God is the reason, not it couldn't be the universe, or the cosmos. Okay.
Well, there are several things you said in there, and I can't keep up with it all, but I'll just try to Ned, what you're referring to is a either an infinite regress of things that happen, or you're saying that the universe contains both being and becoming, and one part acts upon it in order to make another part of it happen. And I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I wouldn't say either one of those, Trey. Sorry.
Okay. Are you saying that the universe has within itself, you understand that something cannot happen without something making it happen, right?
Right, in the same way that, let's say, crystals can't form without the conditions being right. We don't need an intelligence for that to happen. We don't need intelligence for stars to burn. We don't need intelligence for fusion, for supernovae, any of that. What I'm saying is that in the same way that you want me to grant that God can be eternal and just in its nature possess that ability, I'm saying that physics seems to point to the cosmos, at least, if not even our universe, but let's say with the cosmos, so we stay transcendental here, with that same type of property. All I'm saying is let's stay on the same, let's look at the same playing field. If your God can do it, either provide me a reason why the universe can't, or I guess that's what it boiled down to.
Okay. Well, I maybe I didn't explain myself. Maybe I'm not explain. Okay, so you're saying that the universe, basically, would it be fair to say that you're kind of conceding the argument, saying that there is such a thing as self-existence or unchanging nature in the universe that makes things happen, but you just don't want to call it God. Is that a fair thing?
I mean, for the sake of argument, yeah. What I'm doing is I'm granting your main premise of there needs to be something that's transcendental that caused, let's say, the Big Bang in our universe. And all I'm saying is that I can, from what we understand in quantum physics, at least give the possibility that that's a naturalistic causation of that.
Okay, how does quantum physics prove that? I've never heard that, and I'm familiar with the arguments.
Okay. If you go into, like I said, the two, well, there's quite a few, but if you want to constrain it to our visible universe, the two that I mentioned, namely rainbow gravity. What rainbow gravity does is it plays on, or it expands on, I should say, relativity or relativistic physics, from Einstein, trying to bridge the gap from there to quantum. Now, again, it's not a perfect by any means, but if all of it, if what we can observe, and it is testable, and we're actually getting to the point where we should be able to know fairly shortly, within the next 10 to 20 years, if what's called rainbow gravity exists. And what the theory of rainbow gravity, let's just keep it to light because it gets really convoluted. But basically, if you think about when light passes a gravitational well, we get a gravitational lens. That's proven. Einstein predicted that, and we see that all over the place. And if you have any doubt, definitely go Google it because there's some really cool pictures of gravitational lensing. Now, what rainbow gravity does is it takes it one step farther. What it says is that the energy wave, i.e. the color of light, will react differently to gravitational fields. Now, classical physics says no, that doesn't work. The energy state of any object has very little, if anything, to do with how it is attracted gravitationally. However, we have some interesting, evidence out there that would seem to indicate that light may act a little bit different. And what this is relying on is, of course, we've got to get a lot better with our observational lenses. We're going to have a very, very precise space-based telescope, and the last one that just went up may be enough to where we could see that. In that, if we've got light at the red wavelength, let's say, passing a gravitational point, we have the other end of the spectrum, let's say blue or violet light, doing the same thing. We should see a marked difference in how those photons progress through the universe, if you will. Now, the implications to that is that at that point, if that proves to be true, when we extrapolate back, the universe, the Big Bang, would not have gone to a point of singularity. It would not have gone to what most consider a point of non-existence. What it would have done is it's definitely going to be very hot before the expansion, very dense, but it never gets to that annihilation point if you extrapolate back. Now, what that does is that brings back because since Einstein tied together time and space, well, if matter exists, space exists, time exists, we can extrapolate from there that we can go past that point. From the point of expansion, we can extrapolate in a negative direction, if you want to think of it like that, which would imply that the universe has the potential to be infinitely old. Now, that one's interesting on its own. That one is a little, I guess, I don't want to say questionable, but it's fairly young. I think that the latest paper that I saw out on it was about a year ago. But again, I mean, I can link you all this stuff. Hawking did the no boundary proposal, which would not only potentially apply to the known universe, but more importantly, would easily apply to the cosmos in general. And the principles there basically turned time into a shape that is infinite, like I described earlier. In other words, just because we view time on a I think most people look at time as a horizontal plane, with, let's say, them positioned in the middle, and then everything to their left being negative or history, everything to the right being positive or the future. Well, in the same way, if we're standing on a flat plane on Earth, you might look and say, okay, well, if I look in front of me, I'm going forward. If I look backwards, I'm going behind me. Well, if we continue that movement, we continue that direction, we never come to the end. And in fact, if we turn around and walk backwards, we would never come to the end either, because of the properties of a sphere. And I know I hope the mathematicians out there aren't going to beat me up too much, because I know I'm using some very, I guess, basic terms when I say properties of a sphere, because that's definitely taking some liberties there. But anyway, what I'm saying is that I think anybody can see that one of the attributes, if you will, if you don't use properties of a sphere, is that there is a way that it's non-bounded. It's infinite. And Hawking, I wish I could remember the guy's name right now, but a guy from, I know it was in California, one of the schools in California, that was a very well-known paper, and to my knowledge has not been, at least negated. They haven't determined that it's not impossible. So what I'm saying is with those two alone, and like I said, there's many, many more out there. I mean, I'm trying to flip through my notes right now and remember, I know that string theory allows for it once you get up to 10, 11 dimensions. I know that multiverse, part of M theory, multiverse theory, string theory, all of that, once extrapolated back, you can get to the point where you have an infinite cosmos. Not when you get into string theory, and that it does restrict our universe, our bubble universe, to a finite timeline, but the cosmos, anything outside of us, does have not only infinite in scale, and different universes, different bubble universes can be infinite in number, but also, temporally speaking, it also is infinite in both directions. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit. Without
let me ask you a question. If I'm in, are you postulating with all of these theories that you just outlined? Are you postulating an infinite number of events?
Not necessarily. It could be. Number one, it could. Well, I'll put it this way: it could not be in our known universe. In our visible universe, that's one of the reasons that I tend to shy away from the implications behind rainbow gravity, because I do know the problems with an infinite universe. I do wholeheartedly believe that there was a starting point to our universe, i.e. the Big Bang. And even though I could get there with rainbow gravity, I would rather go to no boundary proposal, all of that type of thing, just because now I can have a start event, if you will, Big Bang, so I don't have to worry about all the problems that come into effect if we're living in an infinite universe.
Okay, well, if you're going to hold the Big Bang in your traditional sense, then you have to concede my point.
Which point would that be?
The necessity of self-existence for there to be contingency.
That I'm saying we must be? Yeah, but...
If you said that you don't like an infinite regress, the rainbow gravity theory that it implies, and you say you'd like to have the Big Bang as the beginning. The rainbow gravity, if you're going to say an infinite universe, let me explain this. The principle of causality says that every effect must have a cause, okay? And Bertrand Russell misunderstood this principle. He got it from John Stuart Mill and misquoted it when he was 17, and he kept it throughout his entire life. He said that everything must have a cause, and he said if everything must have a cause, then God must have a cause. But that's not what the principle states. The principle states that every effect must have a cause, and it's not just some fanciful idea somebody brought up. It actually is an analytic argument, and what that is you're saying that every effect has a cause. You're saying that those two principles, you're just repeating yourself. It's a tautology, and that's what an analytic truth is. Yeah. Like to say 2 + 2 is 4, you're just 2 + 2 is the same thing as 4. Okay. To say that every effect needs a cause, then you are just repeating yourself, because the only way that you can define an effect is to say it's a result of a cause. The only way you can define a cause is to say that which gives rise to an effect. So if you want to talk about an infinite regress of stuff happening,
Okay, and
that's
again,
nonsense. You can't do it.
Trey, I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm assigning the exact same, well, maybe not the exact same, because all I'm doing is I'm attributing an infinite existence to the cosmos, not the universe. Again, make sure we're very clear in delineating those two pieces of existence. The
Okay, well,
universe
then
is
you're conceding my argument then.
No, because what the difference between your argument and my argument is the cosmos is naturalistic in manner and has the property of eternal existence. You're mandating that the driver, the first mover, is sentient and must be your God, and non-naturalistic, supernatural in manner. That's the difference in our two
Okay, what do you mean
explanations.
by naturalistic? I'm not sure what that term means, the way you're using it.
Okay, then let's just say non-supernatural, if that helps.
Well, I don't know what natural.
Okay, it doesn't. Okay, then let's break it down. Let's make it as simple as possible. Your God needs sanctions. My cosmos does not. So we can start there. What I'm saying is okay. Go ahead.
So non-sentient, naturalistic self-existence created the universe out of nothing. Is that what you're saying?
Not out of nothing. No, don't. Again, I didn't say there was nothing. Again, I can go down that way. We can get into Lawrence Krauss and all of that, but I don't want to go there because I don't need to.
Okay. Well, the problem is that if you want to say that there is some kind of eternal matter, that whatever this self-existence is acted upon, I don't know how I can do it without sentience, acted upon it, moved it. Well, if it's eternal, then that matter would also have to be self-existent. But unless it's identical to the self-existence, then it would have to be, there'd have to be characteristic differences between those two entities, and the one that can act upon the other, it would not be self-existent. It would be contingent by existence. Contingency means dependent for its existence.
I understand that, Trey. I know contingency fairly well. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the cosmos is material in nature. It is transcendental. We do not know what it consists of in any way, shape, or form. We can't test it, at least at the present time. There's some theories out there that are showing that some of the differences in temperatures in the background radiation may be where we're actually bumping into another bubble universe. But again, short of that, we have no indication of anything outside or any way of determining the nature of anything outside. So don't extrapolate this back and try to say that, or try to envision it with any constraints whatsoever as far as material. It's rocks. We don't have any idea. Is it pure energy? We don't know what it is. But what
I'm defining it as contingency. That's all I'm doing.
Well, no. But
it doesn't have to be matter. I'm just saying if something happens, then it is dependent upon that which gives it existence.
Okay.
Creation ex materia or creation ex anything does not make sense. It violates the law of identity.
Okay, but what I'm saying is I don't understand what event you're talking about other than the Big Bang. And if you're talking about the Big Bang, I think I've explained how the Big Bang could have come into existence without the need for a God.
The Big Bang came into existence. What do you mean by that?
Well, the Big Bang happened. There was an event. There was a reaction. And the causal factor, and again, I will, for the sake of argument here, I'm going to grant you that the Big Bang was a contingent event. It required some outside force to set it in motion. But in the same way that if I put, let's say, hydrogen and helium in a big enough confined area and allow gravity to take over, in our universe with our laws of physics, I don't need any intelligence to start the fission and fusion that goes on in the core of a star. It is a pure chemical reaction. Well, it's a little bit beyond chemical, but well, let's just do it this way. Do I need any kind of intelligence for crystals to form?
You need intelligence to have purpose. And I'm saying the very existence of contingency proves purpose, because contingent is dependent upon that which gives it existence. Therefore, that which made it had to purpose it, no?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you would say crystals have a purpose.
No, I'm saying Ned has a purpose.
Well, wait a second, because I'd like to build from, the simplistic and get to the complex. I mean, I'm trying to demonstrate that crystals are a change. They do grow, they do move, and they do begin, for lack of a better term. And what you seem to imply here, at least if I'm hearing you correctly, that anything that changes, anything that moves or begins or whatever, it has a purpose. And without
it's not sentient. I'm not saying it's sentient.
I'm not saying it's sentient either. I'm saying it has a purpose. That's what you're saying, is it has a purpose.
If it's contingent, it has to be purposed into existence. Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
And so in other words, so again, every chemical reaction, every crystal, every anything.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
chemical reactions. Are you familiar with
if I can jump in real quick, Trey,
please, Chris.
I think some clarification needs. I think we need a little clarification about what you mean by purposed into existence, because on the one hand, you're saying things like, if it exists, it was caused, and therefore it was purposed into existence. And I think that what Ned is saying is there's a whole bunch of catalytic responses in chemistry and physics where there is no purpose. It just happens to be a perfect storm of environmental variables that all of a sudden this reaction occurs without purpose. So if you can, and then when he gives you examples of crystals, you say, no, that's not a sentient being.
Right.
Could you please be more clear and clarify how something being purposed into existence, how that is different for a sentient being versus a non-sentient being? Because those are the examples that Ned is using.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to explain. Ned, are you familiar with Aristotelian causality?
Yeah.
Okay, he broke up causality into several different types of categories, and I use this in all my hangouts, but it's really fundamental for me understanding my perspective, and I think also to be able to communicate it. And I'll use the example of maybe a sculpture, making a sculpture. The material out of which he makes that sculpture would be a block of stone or something. That would be the material cause of the statue. The instrumental cause would be his hammer and his chisel or whatever tools he uses. The formal principle would be the blueprint that he has, whether it be in his mind or on paper or whatever. That he has for the final statue, so what it's supposed to be. The final cause might be the reason for which it was made, which might be someone commissioned him to do it or something like that. And the efficient cause is going to be the sculptor himself. Okay, now when we see things react with each other, like the formation of crystals, what we're watching, what we're observing is a material cause of these materials coming together and reacting together with each other that have properties that naturally react. I'm not saying that those in and of themselves are trying to do anything, but they are merely materials that have inherent within them certain characteristics that will react with certain other things. That's a different category than what I'm talking about you trying to build a model airplane. And I don't need everything to be purposive. That's why I made the differentiation between sentience and non-sentience. If there is anything in this universe that seeks to purpose, like to strive to exist or to try to exist or to value anything, and it's contingent, then there must be a non-contingent purposer that gives it that property. Otherwise, it would not have it.
Okay, I think I'm following now, and I guess the difference, I guess what I'm looking and where I was arguing, and I don't need clarification on this. I think we got it, but I just want to make sure you understood what I was saying. In the same way that you're saying that the crystals are emerging because of the right conditions, I could see the same thing happening from an infinite universe and the right chemicals, if you will, which is going to be completely wrong, but the right conditions, let's say, coming to exist that would spark the Big Bang, for lack of a better term. Now, the next step that you seem to take in here is that because we live in this universe that I think, at least so far, we've established, if we look at it in the same way as a crystal could exist without any cause or any purpose, but because there's sentient beings inside of this, and we have personal goals, personal cause, personal ethics, that mandates that, in fact, it negates the ability for the universe to have been existent in the way that I said from an eternal cosmos. Is that basically what you're getting at?
Yeah, but I'm not. Here's what I want to make a differentiation from is the fact that there is a value for existence among some of this, you want to call it naturalistic universe that we have, and to value something requires a valuer, and a valuer cannot value before it values. There must be eternal valuer.
And I would agree with that. The only difference I would say is that there can be, let's say, contingent value, since we like that word, and that value can be restricted to the valuer itself. And what I mean by that is that just because we have value in whatever does not mean that there is an objective value out there.
Yeah, but why do you value that which is inherently invaluable?
Inherently invaluable?
Yeah.
Example, because I don't think I'm following you there.
Your existence.
Well, I would, and I guess this gets back, we're kind of shifting gears, but I definitely see where we're going, so I like this. I would say that the reason that I survive is because the environment that I happen to exist in, I'm an animal, and if I don't struggle to survive, as Darwin put it, I will not exist. If I quit eating, if I quit breathing. So any animal that is, I guess, genetically predisposed, for lack of a better term, to not struggle to survive won't, because survival's difficult. It's not an easy process to stay alive.
So it's a goal.
But the goal is only self-preservation, and that's brought about because of evolution and how we have gravitated as a species to that goal. It has nothing to do, at least in my opinion, with what the cosmos wants, what the universe wants. It's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things.
But it's a goal, right?
It's a goal for, like I said, it's a conditional goal for me or for the species.
Okay. And where did that goal come from?
Yeah, I thought I just explained that. I mean, if there's, okay, let's look at it like this. If there's a tribe of people out there and they don't care to live, they don't even have to care about, they don't have to desire to die. All they have to do is have the lack of drive to be striving for the next breath. Well, if they don't go and seek food, if they don't self-protect, if they don't procreate, they're not going to be here very long, and their genetic code, if you will, is going to die off, like 99+% of the other animals on this planet. So
one point of clarification then before you keep going, Trey. Yeah. When you ask, so that is a goal. A goal takes on a bunch of different meanings in a bunch of different contexts, right? I have purposeful goals for myself. I call them my values and goals that I commit to. But then there are goals that I have that are below the lineman of consciousness, right? My goal to breathe allows my lungs to work in a way that is well below my level of consciousness. I don't make my lungs breathe. They just do it. My eyes just blink. And that's because of a more inherent goal, let's say, that the selfish gene, the goal of the selfish gene, I want to procreate and introduce more of me into the gene pool. And so in order for that to happen, I have all these automatic and autonomic reflexes, and that could be considered a goal as well. So because of that distinction, because one of them is purposeful, like I have a goal to do X and I can control my environment enough to acquire X, versus when I sit here and listen to you, I'm breathing and my lungs are working in a way that is well below my level of consciousness. What do you mean by goal?
Either one of those is fine. If, in fact, you want to refer to the selfish gene, you need to justify the replicating DNA. They are replicating for the purpose of survival. It's an a priori program that is put into existence for the purpose of existence. Either one of those is fine with me.
Okay, but see, you're assigning, at least if I heard you right there, you're assigning that goal to a creator. In other words, that goal could not have come from evolution. It had to have been there due to the implantation of a higher power.
Well, yes, because evolution, Darwinian evolution, remember I talked about the Aristotelian example of the efficient cause. This is why I mock Darwinian evolution. I think it's silly. I can't imagine, well, I can explain why, but I won't go into that now, but I think it's foolish to say that that you can have a goal without a goaler, something to have a goal. It has no efficient cause. It has no chiseler. It has nothing making this out, and yet it's going toward the goal of existence. And I always use the same example. I talk about Darwin's On the Origin of Species by the means of natural selection, or the preservation of the favored races in the struggle for life. So favored race is that which survives. Struggle for life as if it's somehow important. If you look in the Descent of Man, Darwin oftentimes used very teleological language and talked about the importance of survival.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying earlier. That's why I said Darwin said struggle for survival.
That's right. And he's using teleological language in a paradigm that has no teleologer. It has no purpose, and yet it inherently is infused with purpose. That's just the problem with the theory.
Okay, well, I think where your misunderstanding may be on, and again, I hope this isn't combative or confrontational. Okay. What I'm saying is that you're assigning a purpose to survival in the same way that and an evolutionary goal for a better species, when you need to flip that on its head. The reason that things happen is because whatever species is best suited to fit that environment, they will win out, just because they have better chance to procreate and gather resources and everything else. And it's a back end, almost a reverse engineering of it. It's not because we have this perfect model of humanity out there and we're evolving toward it. No, it's the opposite. If tomorrow something changed and it was better to live with no hands, I mean, I don't know how we would get there, but let's say that there's an advantage to having no hands. Over eons, we could expect that natural selection, because of the energy equation that it takes to create the hands and how much energy it takes to produce this, we would lose that in favor of not having hands and being able to utilize that energy in whatever means is best suited for that environment. It's a reaction, not a contrivance or a it's not proactive in any way. It's completely reactive, in the same way that if we put all the chemicals in the right combination in the right environment, they're going to grow crystals. They react. They don't. It's not like all those chemicals sit around and go, you know what, we're going to make a crystal tomorrow, so we all need to go over here. No, they're there. They react. And a biological organism is in this environment. It reacts to it through the mutations. The mutations the better ones will survive. So, but again, I think that the goal, what you were saying earlier about a goal, is kind of the foundation of this, is that there's really no goal to evolution.
Okay, well, why does all the evolutionists act like there is? For example, when you find a new species, what do you think?
Well, number one, I'm not a biologist, but I mean, if there's a new species, it's a cool observation. It's interesting that
It's exciting, right?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And what do we think about preserving species?
Depending on the species.
Well, generally speaking, people want to preserve, unless, of course, it's damaging. In other words,
exactly.
if it doesn't go towards the goal of life, we as a whole, the whole society, bands together. And if somebody doesn't agree with it, there's something wrong with you.
That's your kicker right there. Is that, and again, I said it's conditional. In the same way that we're going to eradicate polio, we're going to eradicate Ebola if we can. It's because it's driven by self-preservation. It's driven by our ethics and our morality to protect the species.
That's right. It's always based on the value of existence. It's our lifeblood. Everything that we do, everything that we live by in our lives, acts as if life is very, very, very special. And if somebody does not share that value, we say things like they are pathological.
Well, wait
are
a second.
Sick.
Well, wait a second. Not in all cases. I mean, you can't. Number one, we have plenty of sociopaths out there that would not agree with that statement in any way, shape, or form. In fact, we have an entire movement now that feels that the human race is literally a virus to the planet and harmful to the planet. So no, not in all cases.
And what is their goal? Those who say that humans are a virus, why would they say that? What are they shooting for?
They are looking at the preservation of Earth and its ecosystem.
Existence, right?
Not their own existence, the existence of the planet.
They are looking even at a bigger picture, saying humankind is destroying existence. Existence is valuable, therefore humans should not be, right?
But again, it is all subjective. It's not objective. They look at it as a conditionally, I guess, is the only way I can put it because I don't have the verbiage for this, but a conditionally objective truth that, in the same way that maybe you and I look at the preservation of the species as an objective good, they're going to look at a preservation of the planet as the objective good. So when you look at it, their goal is driven by what they feel is correct, but it's all subjectivity, and it means nothing to the universe, to the cosmos. I mean, if our star went supernova tomorrow, it would mean nothing to the universe at all.
Okay, so what's wrong with somebody who wants the desire to kill everybody and destroy the planet?
Okay, well, again, and I guess we're getting into morals now, and hopefully we can bring it back to, well,
we can go back and on.
Well, no. I mean, I have no problems going morals. I mean, in fact, I really kind of welcome it. I don't think enough atheists have thought through the moral argument, so I definitely like to go that way. I'm assuming what you're saying is why do I look at one thing as being good and one thing as being wrong? In short, where do my standards come from? Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, again, I can look to evolution and what one would expect from any species. If I, as a sentient being, understand death, understand that the human species is only as successful as it is because of one attribute, maybe two, but one attribute in particular, which is the ability to build knowledge, to be able to work in a communal organization, a society, build a society that grows our information. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We're not the toughest. We suck at survival on our own. Put a human in the Arctic nude and see what happens. Throw them in the ocean. 99% of the planet, let alone 99 point whatever percent of the cosmos universe, will kill us within a few minutes. So we're not good at survival on our own. And the only reason that we can progress as far as we can is because we have the mental aptitude and the ability to work as a collective organism to better ourselves. So if we extrapolate that back and we look and we go, okay, how did that come into being? How would that happen? Well, if we're like the great apes were, and we start to understand that if we protect our young, if we help each other, and the genetic markers, the genetic traits for that would be passed on. Because if we have two tribes, again, one that doesn't value life or existence or empathy, would quickly kill themselves off, if not die off themselves, because they wouldn't protect each other, they wouldn't have kids, they wouldn't whatever. Whereas a group of individuals who do have the driver to protect each other, to want to work as a community, those individuals are going to have a better chance of survival. And we see that cross species. Any herd animal will produce traits that we would consider empathetic. The herd protects its young. I mean, it's very, at least to me, it's very clear of how this empathetic gene, if you will, would progress. Now, so my standard for why someone going out and killing everybody would be wrong is because of one simple fact. It would, if taken at a societal level, if that was accepted as the norm, it would quickly disintegrate at least society and potentially destroy the entire species. That's my test. And I mean, I welcome you, Trey. I'd love to hear it. If you can come up with a scenario that test would not reflect exactly what we see in the vast majority of society.
Oh, no, that's my whole point. That in fact, it does. It defines all of society. Every society that does not value existence is not. Right. And everybody is striving to survive, but I'm trying to get from you as a justification for it, because you say on one hand, it really doesn't matter, but on the other hand, it's awesomely matters.
It matters contingent on the species. It matters to me. Okay, wait, let me finish. It matters to me because I'm part of the human race. I care if my kids are going to have a place to live, as I'm sure you do. Whereas if I was walking down the street and a polar bear ran into me, it wouldn't have a problem killing all of us. The universe itself, or I get hit by a meteor tomorrow, the universe has no value of human life. Humans value human life because we're part of that organism, and we're at least intelligent enough to understand that without protecting the species as a whole, we're not going to be here. Our progeny is not going to be here. So again, my test is, does it harm humanity? If it does, it's bad, or to use your vernacular, it'd be evil. If it helps, then it's good.
So I'd like to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Trey would accept what you're saying based on what I've heard Trey say, except it still skirts around what Trey is asking. Trey is asking for a justification of the fact that survival is a goal, because let's keep in mind, Trey's coming from the position that every effect must have a cause. So if we organisms, sentient organisms, have a goal, which is survival, how did that get to be our goal? Now, Ned, it sounds like you are using naturalistic explanations to come to your conclusion to justify it. Trey is coming from a different position. It sounds like, Trey. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And, you know, the more you talk about how important survival is, Trey's not going to disagree with you. He's just going to accept that as a goal that was given to us by a goal giver. And I think that his question for you is to justify it in the way that, not exactly in the way that he justifies it, but he has a justification. There's a sentient being that gave us that goal. That's his justification. Where's your justification?
Okay, and if I wasn't clear, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip over that. The justification comes from it's the basic equation between if there is a species that does not have that goal, i.e. the genetic makeup that elicits that response. I mean, maybe this would be a better way to go. I'm assuming that each of you have a kind of sweet food that elicits a response when you're hungry. You know, like let's say an apple or even cake or pie. Well,
Reese's
it's not
peanut butter cups. Let's get really specific.
there you go. Okay. Well, if you haven't eaten for a day or whatever, and I say, hey man, come over to my house and I've got a bowl full of Reese's peanut butter cups, you're not only going to have a physical response in that, good, I get to eat. No, there's going to be an emotional attachment tied to that. And in the same way, if you get here and I say, you know what, man, I was wrong, but here you go, and I push forward a rancid piece of maggot-infested meat, you're going to have a emotional response as well, to the point of maybe even becoming physically ill. Now, in the same way, to where did those emotions come from, we can look back at our ancestors and go, look, the species, the members of our species that craved sweet foods had a better chance at survival, because they're going to seek out food that is more nutritious and probably is not bacteria laden and is not going to kill them. Whereas if there was another set a subset of our species that did crave for rancid meat and whatever, they're not going to be around very long. So those emotional drivers are tied to the genetic drive for food, in that the sweeter, the better it tastes, if you will, the more we crave it and the more emotionally attached we are. Now, okay, if we do the same thing with morals, and let me get there real quick, Chris. Okay. I know I'm rambling. Sorry.
That's all good, man. Just trying to keep it on track. Keep going.
I know. So if I switch those two stimulus, if I say, okay, now when you come over, I've got a picture of a happy, healthy, laughing baby in the arms of his mother or its family, it's going to elicit a response there of probably being happy, and you may even break out in laughter yourself. Whereas if I have a, let's say, baby that's been dismembered and dashed upon the rocks, you're probably going to have, again, a visceral reaction that is negative. And where did that driver come from? I.e., where did our empathy for that child come from? Well, in the same way, if we've got two tribes and one of them value the genetic makeup of this organism it gravitates toward empathy and gravitates toward protecting and making their children happy, they're going to survive longer. Whereas if you've got the converse of that, they're going to kill themselves or die off. So to me, where did it come from? It came from the goo. It came from when we first started to evolve, gravitating to valuing our own species, at least life, because we need that or we won't survive. Did that answer the question, or did I just completely go off track?
Well, it sounds like you gave a more detailed answer to the fact that nature is really your answer. It is inherent in us that the way that we have evolved as the organisms that we are, that it makes more sense that we naturally developed these things. So let me turn it to Trey, because Trey hasn't really had a chance to talk too much over the past couple of minutes. Trey, if I can flip the question on its head, because I'm only going to assume that your disagreement with what Ned just said has everything to do with the idea that you have that every effect must have a cause, right? So where did you get that? Where did it get into the genes? How did it get into the genes? Why do we still have it? That kind of stuff. Could you please explain to me why it is that you think that purpose needs to be tethered to a purposer, and why every effect must have a cause, as compared to that just being one of many alternative ways of building a model of reality?
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I stated at the beginning, my foundational presuppositions are sense perception and logic, and so every effect that must have a cause is an analytic truth. And since there is an effect, there must be a cause, and since all we know is dependent existence, there must be something with self-existence, and that's going to go also into the area of purpose. I didn't hear anything from Ned except for him to say that it's just the way it is. This is my problem with Sam Harris and his moral landscape. He says that science can give us moral code, and what he says is if we can presuppose that we need to minimize suffering and maximize flourishing, then we can do empirical evidence or empirical experiments to see that which meets that goal. But he's not. He's assuming his conclusion as the beginning. He said, if you will assume this. Now, Ned, your worldview says that this is not true, that there is no intrinsic value to anything, and so what you're, I mean, at the very end of your explanation, you said that it just arose out of accident. Again, and this to me is not acceptable to say that intentionality was unintentioned. You cannot have something arise out of something that does not have the quality of its predecessor. It can't just happen like that. Furthermore, I said that contingency by its very existence is purposive because it had to be created. It's dependent for its existence. Therefore, it had to be valued in order to be brought into existence. So I didn't feel like you answered my question at all. And I mean, I interact with people all the time on this, and they tell me the same thing. But I've never received a satisfactory answer for that.
Well, I get, and sorry if I wasn't clear. I guess the way that what I'm hearing is that my standard could not have arisen through naturalistic means. Is that fair?
Purpose cannot come by accident. Yes.
Okay, but again, I think you're kind of trying to put the cart before the horse in that you're saying that there's going to be a purpose at the end of the game, and what I'm saying is no. The purpose is just as reactionary. The only reason that we value life is because through evolutionary development, we have evolved to value life. And the driver there was not. It wasn't a precondition. It wasn't that we have to value life. It's that if we don't value life, if we didn't evolve to value life, then we wouldn't exist.
You're assuming a conclusion.
Again, Trey, I think that you're looking at it. Okay, then I guess maybe let's try to shift a little bit if you don't mind, because I think we may be talking past each other a little bit here. Where I give my test for morality is, does it benefit or does it harm humanity as my basis for my moral. I'm assuming that what you use for your test, if you will, is God, and what God says is right and wrong. Would that be fair?
Yes, but mine is also based in the sanctity of existence. But it's ultimately, for the Christian religion, we have basically two rules that sift all the others. And we've got the Decalogue, but underneath the Decalogue must be sifted through, is the love of God and the love of your neighbor. And so ultimately, it's going to be the value of existence, the same as everybody else. But the ultimate value must be the value of the self-existent one who gives existence to everything. So yes, I agree with you with the caveat.
Okay, so, and I guess where the self-existent one, that almost seems like an ontological argument there, or at least you're starting down that road.
Every argument I'm going to give is going to be an ontological one. Everything boils down to an ontological argument for me.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that there's, at least to me, there's a huge problem with the ontological argument. Well, it's
going to be ontological in nature. Let me say this. I'm not necessarily talking about Anselm's argument, although I think it's pretty neat. But I'm using a cosmological argument, but it's an argument from ontology, okay, from self-existence.
Well, okay, but because I'm hesitant to go down this road because I don't want to get off on some tangent but I think that we definitely can explore this if you want to, but would you agree that God is an ontological necessity?
Yes, he's an ontological necessity and he's a logical necessity.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, we're going down the road. Stop us. Seriously.
Let me tell you this, guys. I would like to go for like about 10 more minutes because I need to do some shopping, spend some time with my son. So
Okay.
if we could wrap this up maybe like 10 minutes. So.
Okay. Do you want to kind of explore this for the 10 minutes, or was there something else you want to go to? Because I don't want to push you.
Okay. No, we can do that. That's fine.
All right. I guess the main problem I have when you started getting into the ontological necessity, and stop me real, I want to clarify real quick that basically what it boils down to is God exists because, number one, he has to exist because the greatest being, if you can imagine the greatest being, then it has to exist because existence is better than non-existence. I mean, does that, at least in a nutshell, get to the essence of it?
Well, that which exists in reality is greater than that which exists in concept only.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, I can, and so we're basically saying the same thing, I think. Well, I mean, here's my main problem, and I've got, basically it's a syllogism, So, if you're going to say that if the maximally great God exists, well, then that God must be maximally efficient, because if he's doing things that are not efficient, he's not maximally great. Well, he's only therefore going to create things that he needs. Well, if a God is maximally great, that God would need nothing. So if anything exists, it follows, the conclusion is, that was P2, the conclusion is if it is a maximally great being, it should need nothing. And since there is things that, like you said, is self-evident, exists, a maximally great being cannot exist.
Okay, well, I'm not saying God needs anything. What you're saying is that if there's such a thing as self-existence, it is not possible for it to be volitional. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying that
that's the implications of what you're saying.
Right, but I'm saying there's two sides to this coin. I mean, well, with that argument, you're right. With that argument, what I'm saying is if you want to use the ontological argument, I think that syllogism brings us to the conclusion that we shouldn't see anything if there is a maximally great being out there, because if he's creating things, he's not maximally efficient, because he would only do it if he needed it. And okay. I think we both agree that if a God needs something, he's not as great as a God that wouldn't need something.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he needs anything.
Okay, then he's not maximally efficient, which again, he's not maximally great.
Define maximally efficient.
Okay, if I go out and I were to just build whatever in my backyard because I felt like doing it, and I spend $100,000 doing it, that is not the most efficient use for my money or my time or anything else, just because I wanted a sculpture in the backyard or whatever. If there is a God,
you're anthropomorphizing efficiency with something you cannot know. You're a contingent. You don't know what efficiency is, ultimately.
Again, is God, if God creates something, if God makes something, would it logically follow that he needed that, or if he didn't need it, it's inefficient to create that?
No, because like I said, the logical corollary to what you're saying is that self-existence cannot be volitional. Does that make sense?
Again, but you're starting to mix. I don't want to get into the volition. I just want to stick to what the syllogism is implying.
And I'm trying to extrapolate what the syllogism is implying. Are you saying it is not possible for a self-existent being to make a choice?
That's a good question. I don't know, because here's the thing. If a maximally efficient being were to exist, and in the same way that being cannot make a choice to do something illogical, it can't make a square circle, it can't make a rock so big, all of those stupid little whatevers.
Yeah.
Could it make the decision, if it was maximally efficient, if it did everything to just completely meet its own needs, then it couldn't choose to do something that didn't meet its own needs? Would that be fair?
It couldn't choose something that didn't meet its own needs.
In other words, God couldn't
Sure.
act evil because he wants to, because that's against what his
He cannot deny
preconditions are.
himself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, so it would follow that if God created us, our universe, whatever, and he was maximally, God, I cannot talk, maximally efficient, he needed this universe and all of its components and everything else.
Well, I mean, I guess we're just going to disagree on this. I don't see why it follows that he must need it. Again,
Well, Trey, because you just agreed that if he does something and he's maximally efficient, he only does it because he has to do it. He must do what is the best action. In the same way, he must follow whatever is the in your opinion, a objective good. He must, whatever action he takes, must be maximally efficient.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
I would like to offer this as a potential point to wrap it up by saying this. Just because, Trey, I'd like to abide by your wishes. I think spending time with your son and doing some shopping is obviously way more important than this discussion, as fun as it is.
Absolutely.
The one thing I just wanted to wrap it up with, excuse me, is I think that we're getting a little bit closer to not talking past each other, the two of you, and I think that, excuse me, Ned is trying. A little bit ago, Trey, you mentioned that the core for your position has to do with your sense perceptions and logic. A combination of those two things seem to be where your ideas follow from. Is that an accurate paraphrasing?
yes.
Okay, so I think that Ned is trying to use his sense perceptions and logic in, if we're going to talk about efficiency, to try to point out some internal inconsistencies with a God concept, whereas with his senses and logic, we know that things that are efficient by definition try to be parsimonious in one way, shape, or form, that whatever is done is on a need pragmatic basis, and I think that's where he was coming from with that argument. But instead of unpacking it further, I think that us all being mindful of the fact that is a point of contention, that would be a fun place to start next time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm good with that too.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds great, Chris.
Okay. Well, my sincere apologies for coming in a little bit late. My Skype was not working the way I wanted it to, and I didn't get many of the messages that Ned was sending me up until the moment I arrived in the hangout. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. Let's respect Trey's wishes to spend some family time and get some shopping done, and let's behind the scenes organize a part 2 of this where I promise to be there from the beginning, and maybe
sounds good.
Maybe we can pick up where we left off and have a little bit more fruitful of a discussion, because there was a little talking past each other. I think some of us realized it as it was happening, and so we kind of went through a bunch of different paths. But I think that we're starting to find an area where we can all sink our teeth in.
Okay,
I think so too.
And
I want to say,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ned. I want to say thank you for agreeing to come together with me. You've been really nice, very rational, very wanting to look into these things, and it's been helpful and enabled me to learn. And Chris, thank you for hosting this. I just so appreciate your astute observance and your interactions to help clarify and guide. You did a great job. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'd like to basically mirror that both to you guys. I really appreciate it, and like I said, I'm glad that we had the ability to do this. And Christopher, don't blame your own Skype, because like I was telling you earlier, mine tends to get wiggy, so I don't know how many of those messages it took that long to actually push through. So I'm not blaming you in any way.
Oh, I got all of them at once, like 5 minutes before I showed up.
Exactly. All right.
All right, gentlemen, have a great evening, and let's talk behind the scenes and promote the next one as soon as we have it all ironed out.
Okay, have a great evening, guys.
All right, take care, gang.
All right, bye.